Right, I think that's everybody here. Thank you so much for joining us for one of these quick Friday afternoon sessions. My name's Sue Williams and I'm one of the PPMA board members. So my job today really is to not spend too much time introducing Amy Andrews, who is representing one of our brilliant sponsors at Jobsgopublic. Amy's got about a 20-minute session with you looking at how we engage with our candidates, which is obviously really pertinent in the environment we're working in at the moment. The session is recorded, but there will be some editing, so don't worry too much about it being recorded. But the good news about that is that it means that you can tell your colleagues about the content and just spread the word if you want to, if you feel someone else might benefit from listening to the chat and to the tips and techniques that Amy is going to run through with us. We are going to use the chat function and I'll be keeping an eye on that. Grace, one of the people who's supporting us behind the scenes, said before that it is feast or famine on the chat function, so we'll wait and see just how much traffic we get on the chat, but feel free to post any questions. It is one of the benefits of tuning in live, that you can, you know, post your thoughts and comments and perhaps come in with your contribution later on. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Amy. Amy, thanks again for giving up your time this afternoon and just talking us through this session with some of our PPMA members. It's really appreciated.
Lovely, thanks very much. So thanks very much, guys, for having me. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. So hopefully you can all see my screen and my lovely little face in a little circle there. Lovely to meet you all. My name's Amy Andrews. I work for Jobsgopublic, who some of you may already know of. So I'm going to talk to you today about engaging with your candidates. So just to give you a little overview of Jobsgopublic and who we are. So our purpose, and it was 20 years ago, was to support public sector organisations to find their talent and work with clients to find solutions to support organisations, because we all know when we work in recruitment that recruitment is hard, whether it's your day job or part of your job. It can be very difficult to find candidates and engage with them. So we recently have been awarded places on the CCS framework and also the ESPO framework for supporting organisations. So in terms of the public sector, my background is I've been a recruiter for many years. I joined Jobsgopublic a year ago to set up a team to support clients when they found jobs hard to fill. So a lot of my time spent with engaging with candidates on LinkedIn or candidate database, which is quite exhaustive. So it's working with people to try and engage with them and get candidates into really good positions. So public sector, there's always been a push for the public sector to, which sadly sometimes you're competing with private sector. I'm not going to go into the whole sort of benefits of working for the public sector, but I think people, when you're in that industry, in that business, you sort of forget the benefits of working for a public sector organisation. Things like pension, job security, learning development, holidays, annual leave, the list is endless. And I think when you're in that organisation, you can sometimes forget that that actually is a selling point to a candidate. And I always say when I'm speaking to managers about recruitment, it's about sharing your passion and your love for your business and who you're working for, and really the reason why you want to work for local authority, housing association, anybody, any organisation that you work for. And it's about selling those opportunities to candidates to get them engaged. So there's lots of reasons why we should engage with our candidates. And I think a lot of problems I keep coming against with clients is that candidates aren't engaged. They lose candidates down the way of recruitment. And I spoke to an organisation a couple of weeks ago, and it actually took them about 3 months from putting an advert out to then getting someone started in that position. And candidates will sadly lose engagement, lose motivation. I always say to somebody when they're recruiting, looking for a position, think about the candidate, pretend you're a candidate when you're recruiting, and it means that you'll be a little bit quicker, but also means that you're really going to start engaging with people to get them brought into your organisation. So Benefits is probably one of the biggest benefits within the public sector. It's things like development opportunities that I've already mentioned, but it also shows that you value employees. We've done a campaign recently with an organisation, and I've asked part of the department to actually give some testimonials about why that organisation is really good. And a lot of the teams have given me snippets of why they work for that borough, why they love their job, why they love the people that they work with, and the organisation and the care workers. So it's really good, and it shows that from a candidate's perspective that you are a really good organisation to work with, and that you can start some form of engagement. And it also allows your candidates to see the culture and values. I'm sure when all of you have been looking for your roles that you're in now, you will Google an organisation, you will find out the plus and minuses about working for that organisation, but it gives you a clear understanding. And if someone is shouting and saying how wonderful you are because you've won an award or you've done something really good within a care part of your business, it shows that you as a candidate can be aligned with your own culture and values, but also that from an organisational point of view as well. And it also gives people the idea of looking at the whole package. As I have moved jobs a couple of times in my career, it's all about looking at the whole package. It's not just down to the money, it's things like the projects that you're working on. We've run a couple of campaigns within planning recently, and the sales to the candidate has been the plans and development of that particular area. That has been really good to sell to a candidate. So it's thinking about things that really bring your organisation to life. And it allows you to put your brand into your recruitment strategy. So having a brand of a big London borough or smaller housing association or charity, it's really important to share your values and share your themes. And we've done a lot of work with many clients over the years. And having an organisation who thinks sometimes like a candidate can really help and improve engagement, because you would want to have the same aspect from your career search as you would if you're recruiting for a position. And obviously having a really good brand and being engaged with candidates attracts candidates. And we know there is a huge shortage across the country for people within social care, planning, surveying, all sorts of top positions that are really hard to fill. So it really sets you apart from your neighbouring boroughs to actually try and draw in some candidates. And also, the main thing for a engagement with candidates is to start a positive journey. We all talk about, and I'm sure there's been many webinars about candidate onboarding, getting them from day one and ensuring that onboarding process goes for sort of at least 3 months to 6 months to a year. So it really does provide a positive start to a candidate's journey. It's what you want when you're trying to engage with organisations, engage with candidates to come and work for you. So how do you do it? So I would always, first of all, say that any job advert should be really clearly stated about what you do as an organisation, any awards you've won, anything really going on, because it brings your organisation to life. A lot of people sometimes find adverts can be quite a little bit sometimes boring, as there's something that they don't bring the organisation to life, and you want to really sort of showcase your organisation with your adverts, so highlighting benefits, highlighting why work for you. You are not only selling your business, but you're selling your department, and candidates want to be engaged with you and they want to learn more about you to assure that their values are in line. So have your advert, your benefits, and the reason why you have a good position to have in your advert. Also career sites. Career sites are wonderful things where you can have messages or videos from your chief exec. You could have members of your department in there. You could have testimonials from your team to say how wonderful or that they'd won an award. Or I'm sure all of your organisations will have, obviously the PPMA run awards every year, things like that. If you win, have that on your career site, and it just gives you a bit more information as a candidate of why to apply for that job and why to apply for you. And also social media is really important. Nobody really applies for jobs on computers, on laptops. They use their mobile phones. So everything has to be mobile. So thinking about things that can really help to ensure that your brand is known. You've got some really good case studies to take away and really get people involved at all levels, not just the chief exec. It could be someone who has gone through an apprenticeship program with you. They could be on a graduate scheme. These are little snippets and little videos that you could make and have them on your career site, your website, to actually showcase your business and engage with people. So how to engage with candidates. So the list is endless. There's lots of different ways that you can engage with your candidates. The first thing I would say when there's jobs to be filled is make it easy to apply. Candidates do really get turned off by lengthy application forms. They get turned off by having lots of information to provide. Make it easy for them. Make it so easy for them to apply that they can't apply. Obviously, people like LinkedIn have like one click apply. You want to canvass all the information that could be relevant for any safeguarding roles, but obviously you don't want to make it too lengthy that someone is going to give up halfway through an application process. And also things like responding quickly. Don't always wait until the end of an advert. I think if someone applied in the first week that advert was live, it's really important to engage with them. If you can't interview until the end of the month, reach out to them, say, really keen on your application. We're looking forward to meeting you. Unfortunately, I can't do interviews until a certain day. And also be really specific in your advert when interviews are going to be, because it means that candidates will make themselves available so that when they come to shortlisting, that they are available and don't have any other plans on that day. And using things like an applicant tracking system can enable you to send out communications to applicants. It can allow you to engage with candidates who may have stopped halfway through the process and not finished their application. It just means that you're having some form of communication so that actually you're not a robot at the end of the application. You're a person who actually really is engaged with them. And also provide timely feedback. I have dealt with many candidates over the years, and one of their main frustration is that they never get feedback. They never hear from the hiring manager. It's really important to actually have that communication with them, and don't delay with a really good candidate. If you can see someone who has applied who looked really good, don't wait until the closing date, because you will lose them, which is probably one of the biggest frustrations as a hiring manager has, is that if you spend too long mulling over CVs, that you don't actually get to meet the really good people and you miss out because they will find other roles within another organization. Things like making compliance as smooth as possible. From the offset, I would always say, highlight if your application is going to include a presentation, if it's going to include an assessment day, have that on your advert so that candidates are clear and aware of what's going to be asked of them. What somebody doesn't want to do is get a really good interview, really engage, but actually know that if they have to do a presentation 2 weeks down the line, they're going to be really nervous and they're not going to be able to do their best. So I think if you're open and have open communications with them, it's really good. And also things like measuring performance, measuring the time it takes you to recruit is really important, because you want to do things quite quickly. Public sector is really important to get people in as quickly as you can. So measuring things like your feedback of candidates who may have then not accepted the position if they're hired, and also sharing success stories. So why is your organisation a really good place to work for? So as I mentioned previously, it's about sharing successes. It's about sharing wonderful things that you're doing within your neighbourhood, within your borough. That's probably one of the main benefits why people want to work for a local authority or a public sector business. And also the final point I'd like to say there is don't delay. If you see someone really, really good and you think their application form is tremendous, interview them, engage with them, open a communication, have conversations with them to try and say, give them feedback, give them an understanding of when feedback's going to be and when they're going to understand from you from the interview process. Excuse me. And also thinking about new ways to engage. Excuse me. So lots of organisations we've worked through recently have done lots of different things to try and find candidates, whether it be a graduate fast track program, apprenticeships. It's about thinking outside the box to fill some roles which may be difficult to fill. So a client of ours recently has run a number of assessment days where they've looked at skills-based assessments and recruitment rather than an application form. So they have done things like candidates who applied, they have contacted all of the candidates that applied, had good conversations with them to try and find out if actually they are worthy to be a care worker, have they've got the skills to do it. And it means that somebody who may not be able enough to fill in a really long application form, it means that they're going to have some communication with somebody that they know the process and actually can have some rapport, because lots of things within our jobs, we can train people. It's sometimes having the will and the want to do it and to do a good job, which is sometimes better. So looking at skills-based recruitment rather than having X, Y, and Z of qualifications or skills. And also things like employee referral schemes. I know anywhere that I've worked, there's always been a referral scheme. So if I referred somebody, I'd get maybe a bunch of flowers or a bottle of champagne or something, just to say thank you for referring somebody. But also it works as well. So when we think about our networks, and me as a recruiter, I am not a specialist in housing. I'm not a specialist in legal. However, I do know how to talk to people. So when we talk about our connections, it's sometimes who you know and not just what you know. So it's really important to share these things on your social LinkedIn posts and actually engage with people. We've just had a new starter in our business, and we've already got people coming to us and say, we're really interested about your brand. What positions do you have? And it's about always on recruitment. It's about always thinking about having that conversation, because somebody might not be available now and they might be available in 3 or 4 months time. But actually, if you're starting to have that conversation with them when they are looking down the line, they'll think of you first. And also things like candidate management. It's really important that providing feedback at any stage. So whether they have done an interview or just applied, it's really good for candidate engagement to actually get some feedback, no matter how small. And obviously people want as much as they can, but it's about thinking about being a candidate through that process and what you would expect if you were going for an interview with someone or doing assessment day or whatever sort of focus group that you were looking at. And also focus on passive candidates. Not everybody is looking. When you're advertising, not everybody is looking at that time, and sometimes the best candidates do need a little bit of pricing to move on from their roles, but it's about managing pipelines, and somebody who may not be successful now could be a candidate that you want to re-engage with in 6 months time. So it's really important that you do, if you are letting someone down gently, that they could be a candidate for the future, to actually have those pipelines open to say, actually come back to me in 6 months, or would really want to have an application from you in the future. And I think that is probably one of the strongest things that I can do, because if you think about things that you buy in your daily lives, you wouldn't go to a certain supermarket if you had a bad experience. So it's really important that you do think like that as a candidate. And finally, how we can help. So there's lots of different ways that you can engage with candidates. We obviously have a job board, which some of you may have come across, with things like advertising. Applicant software is really important for us, because we can showcase where candidates have come from, what successes are working well for you as an organisation, and driving traffic to your career site. And also for the hard to fill jobs, it sometimes does need a bit of help. So we do have a talent team which I run to engage with candidates on a long-term basis. I came to Jobsgopublic just over a year ago because I wanted to work for an organisation that provides solutions, not just recruitment, resourcing and headhunting. So it's about having the solutions and working together to find the good candidates.
That's brilliant, Amy. Thank you. Some really good food for thought there. Can I ask you a question about the sort of one-click advertising and one-click interviews? I was sitting with my 20-something-year-old stepson the other day, and he was telling me that he'd been online for an hour and he'd applied for 8 jobs. And I just wonder how that sits with things like equality data and blind advertising, and how we balance those two things up with, you know, our often quite detailed application forms versus that market where, you know, he can literally just click apply for a dozen jobs in
it's a
an
hard mix.
afternoon.
It's a hard mix to have. So, I mean, candidates who have to fill in long application forms. And I mean, I've done it, and I've filled in huge application forms, and I've filled in every single person's specification to get through. And then actually at the end of it, I've then had a no. So I think it's about having that halfway point of what you actually need, the data that you need to have collected for all of your jobs, whether it be 5 years career history for social care, or it could be something like a personal statement. I think it's really easy on things like LinkedIn that you can send your CV straight away, which can be quite helpful for non-specific jobs. I think on our platform, when people create a profile on Jobsgopublic, for example, you have all of the diversity information in there. You have you can see the job applications you've applied for. You've got all of your relevant information. So when it's a one click, it is a one click because you will have gone to do it quite quickly, but all of the information that you've created on your profile is there for a client to see. So it's having that happy medium. And I mean, I always say when, like, for example, a campaign we're working on at the moment, it's about the want to work within social care, for example, and having the skills of actually having a really good bedside manner, someone who can talk to elderly patients and look after them, not necessarily having 20 years experience within care, but having the want to do it, and actually having a skills-based telephone conversation, which we've been doing, saying, right, this is the job, what are you doing, what's your want to do this job? And that sometimes can help in jobs where it can be quite difficult to keep people and they want to stay for longer. So it's a happy medium of getting the information that you want, but also making it easy for a candidate to apply, because you don't want them to fall out halfway through the process.
Yeah, definitely. I was looking at some CIPD research last week for some stuff I'm doing on recruitment, and it's buoyancy is at the last time it was this high was in 1974, according to the research. So it really is about rethinking everything we do from a candidate's perspective. I love that term, like candidate centric, just thinking about how it's made you feel in the past for not perhaps getting that feedback, not hearing what's happening, things falling into a black hole.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about engaging with people and having that conversation. And I spend my days speaking to clients, and clients sometimes they do get annoyed when somebody drops out. And as a recruiter, I don't want people to drop out of an interview process. But actually, if there's been maybe 3 or 4 weeks where a candidate hasn't heard back, and they're ringing me asking me for feedback, and I don't know because I haven't had any, it can be quite disheartening. And candidates will move on. It's not the case that you expect to have a candidate accept the job. Sometimes they do and they accept the job, but sometimes they don't, and you have to take that feedback on board and provide that. And there's many times when I've gone out to clients recently and they've struggled with jobs, and they had no idea what the feedback was about the particular job or what the project was. And that's where we try and sort of work with a client to say, right, this is the feedback we're getting, this is really helpful for you.
I'm wondering whether if anyone in the group has got any tips or ideas on what they're doing to keep candidates warm as we sort of trundle through the necessary hoops that we sometimes have to face in local government. Can't see anyone typing.
No, we always, I mean, anybody we have forward for interviews, we speak to them, we keep them warm, really, to try and say this is when it's going to be. And I think that's probably the case for many HR departments and many managers. You want to have your engagement, you want to speak to people. And I think that is half, if I know that I'm not going to get feedback until Thursday, then I'll be happy as a candidate. So it's about keeping, like Helen says, it's about keeping the conversation going.
Yeah. I once did a campaign where all the candidates needed, it was in IT and in social care, but the application was sell yourself in 200 words, and that's all they had to do. So we pushed the the actual filling in of an application as far down the process as we possibly could. So we'd got that psychological contract with the candidate before we started making them do any of our internal bureaucracy. And ultimately they did have to do the application form, but we'd had quite a lot of chats and conversations with them before we got there.
Yeah, we had a client it was during COVID, and they changed their application process from having an application online to anybody who expressed interest, have a conversation with them, and then they did further down the line, they work with this is the application form, now you've got the job, let's fill it in.
Helen, I completely agree with you about, like, sometimes when people ask for feedback and you don't say anything at all, that's like deeply frustrating that you don't get something that you can work on, because we're adults, aren't we? You know, there's something that you could look at to perhaps make it better the next time.
Yeah, and like I say, candidates for the future, not everybody's going to be successful for whatever reason for their interview, but it's having that talent pool and say, right, we need this job's come up again, who can we think about? And I know many a candidate who's gone for an interview, they've been pipped to the post, but then a job's come up sort of 3 months later, and then they've gone to it with that organisation. So it does work because there's engagement there.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time, Amy. We are going to share those slides so that if you need to, you know, look at them again or reflect on, this session is recorded, so you can have a look at it that way. And if anyone does have any questions, I think Grace, who's in the background, is still happy to take emails from you. So if you want to get in touch with Amy or with anyone at Jobsgopublic and have a follow-up conversation, then we can facilitate that for you through PPMA. But we're giving you a minute or two back, not much. These go so quickly. They are. Grace has put the admin@ppma.org.uk if anyone wants to get in touch or needs any further information. But for now, enjoy your Friday afternoon. Amy, thank you again, and please pass on our thanks to Jobsgopublic for their ongoing support with PPMA. It really is very much appreciated, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you now.
All right, see you later.